Hello everyone and welcome. This is going to be the implementation in a ninth grade classroom. So here I have the implementation overview. The 3-act math task is basically what I'm explaining is what this is and how it is a whole group task consisting of 3 parts. The first one is more of an engaging and perplexing part. The second is an information and solution seeking, and the third one is solution discussion and solution revealing. This will provide students with the context for the use of mathematics as well as the development of mathematical thinking. In this task, students will be given a short 30-second video and then from there move on to the rest of the tasks. The task will be in a form of discussions on Canvas, and after each of the discussions, students will be put in Zoom breakout rooms where they will have mathematical discourse. So here is going to be my Google Slides, so the 3-act math task implementation in a ninth grade classroom. The contents are, the first thing I'm going to have is the demographic information. The second one is the fictional composite. Third is lessons, objectives, standards, and goals. The fourth one is prerequisite skills or slash knowledge required for mastery slash standards deconstruction. The fifth one is a calendar overview of the lesson pacing. The sixth is the lesson plan. The seventh is lesson presentation. And the eighth one is lesson handouts. So the demographic information, I teach at a ninth grade level at Arvin High School, which is part of the Kern High School District. The subject is Algebra 1. There are 36 students in the class that I'm doing it on. The socioeconomic status is, this is a Title I targeted assistance school. So here I provided the ELA and the mathematics, the percents of students within each achievement level. So the lesson objective of implementing the 3-act math task is, build towards symbolic expression and translate situations into expressions and figure out the total cost. The goals: by the end of the lesson, students will be able to translate real life situations into expressions and find total cost or find the total. So they are also going to be writing a simplified expressions to represent the order with the correct coefficients. The standards used for this is standards ASSE 1A. This is interpret structure of expressions. Interpret expressions that represent a quantity in terms of its context. Interpret parts of an expression such as terms, factors, and coefficients. So here I have the composite of a struggling student and a struggling classroom. For the struggling student, this student is very quiet and shy. She never wants to share during SEL activities / lessons with the class via Zoom. Her webcam is always off. She would rather just talk to the teacher directly through email or Zoom or the Zoom chat. The student does not ask for help on any of her assignments, or she doesn't ask questions either. She has a very low grade. She also scored really low on the previous quizzes. Students were Every single student was given a chance to retake the quizzes, but she decided not to take it. She also has not taken advantage of the academic collaboration and student support, which are my office hours, or the Kern High School District virtual tutoring that they just announced a couple of months ago. This student says she enjoys math only when she understands it. She actually put this in one of her journals that I provided for them. So I have now a composite of a struggling classroom. In this classroom, students need help getting materials organized. For school with the block schedule, students can easily get bored and tired of sitting. Therefore, students need breaks often. Students like working in small groups but can easily get distracted. Therefore, groups will be created for peer teaching as well as collaboration. Students with different academic levels are grouped together. This is one strategy that I really like doing during the credential program, um, grouping students with different academic levels. Students are constantly given graphic organizers to help them study and gain study skills. They are told to have an interactive notebook in which they keep all their math notes and graphic organizers in one place, but also need help with organization. So here are the prerequisite skills, knowledge required for mastery, and standards deconstruction. So here I have building functions, which is FBF1A. This is the prerequisite skill. To build a function that models a relationship between two quantities, and write a function that describes a relationship between two quantities, determine an explicit expression, a recursive process, or steps for calculation from a context. I also decided to include the standards for mathematical practice, which is 2 and 3. Number 2 reads reason abstractly and quantitatively. So this basically has, think of what makes sense. With the 3-act math test, this was just really important. I also included number 3, which is construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. So talk and explain. So I had students go on to their breakout rooms and um, discuss the task 1, task 2, and finally task 3. They were able to get into mathematical discourse in this way. So here is the my calendar. So the first thing we went over is fractions and fractals, which is operations with signed numbers. Next, we had data exploration, which is two variable data. This is just graphing on a graph on a plane. Next, we had proportional reasoning and variation. So the first one we went over was proportions. The second one was proportions with percents. The third one was conversion factors and unit rates. The fourth one is inverse variation, and the last one was evaluating expressions. Oh, and finally we have undoing operations. So right after finishing the undoing operations was when I implemented the 3-act math task. And after that, we are moving on to linear equations, which are recursively defined sequences, and linear plots. So the reason I decided to do it right after undoing operations was because the first unit had to do with expressions and getting into equations. But I think I should have done it before. So I think I should have. That's one of the recommendations I have on my site, which is to do a 3-act math test before the actual unit to introduce it to them. So here I have my lesson plan. So this is basically the lesson plan I have almost every day, which is a daily check-in. Students will begin the day with a journal. So if you click on the journal, it'll take you to a Google form in which students answer a few questions. This is one thing I really love doing with students. Students really like doing it at the beginning. A lot of them have been very honest with me, telling them they're having a good day or bad day. The second thing I do almost every single day is a warm-up / homework review. So either one of those, students still, appreciate that I do homework review, which is what I've been told by one of my students. So a teacher will assign a warm-up, which is 5 minutes on the previous lesson, as well as go over a few homework problems. All of this should take no more than 10 minutes. Next, I have the class discussion. So I will remind students about grouping strategies, combining like terms, and how they can be used in real life in order to solve equations or expressions, or find the total cost of something. I will also help them differentiate between expressions and equations. So students right now do get a little confused on expressions and equations, but I always, give them hints like, okay, equations has an equal sign, expressions doesn't. So the first one we have here is Act 1, which is the setup. Students will watch a 30-second video on a guy ordering food for a party. Students will then reply to the following 4 questions on a discussion post, and then they will discuss it within their Zoom breakout rooms. So some of the questions include: what do you notice? What do you wonder? How much will it cost for all those items? And how will you write a simplified expression to represent that order? So that is Act 1. So once again, students will have a discussion post titled Act 1, and then they're going to answer these questions. Once they go into their breakout rooms, they're going to discuss these 4 questions and agree or disagree, and then we're going to move on to Act 2, which is collect data and solve. Students will use the video to discuss the idea of collecting like terms, and will have developed an expression that will represent the total cost. They will now be given the a menu with the items and their prices to find the total cost. Students will have a short discussion with their Zoom breakout rooms. So once again, I will now have published Act 2, in which they will reply to the discussion post revealing the total cost using the menu with the prices and the items. Then they will go on to their Zoom breakout rooms and discuss whether they got the same answer or something different. Once we come back, I'm gonna introduce Act 3, which is the review and reflect. Students will be given a third discussion post. In this one, they will reflect on their estimate for Act 1 and explain whether their estimate was close or were they super far off. They will also explain how they can use the strategy of grouping items in real life. So the 3-act math test, so the class will have a discussion on different questions students have during the activity. When I asked the students if they had any questions, these were some of the questions I got to write down on that day. So why did he not combine the order? Why didn't he just order 3 hamburgers, 5 fries, 4 cokes, and 2 chickens? So this doesn't make sense yet, but I will show you what they mean by that. And another question was, why doesn't he just combine all the items that are alike, such as like the second question? And how did we set up an expression using that information? So the lesson presentation, so these are so Kern High School District has been utilizing Canvas and Zoom to meet with the students and deliver lessons. So these are the 2 things that I mainly used for this 3-act math task implementation. So due to distance learning, I did not have any handouts, but I did have discussion posts on Canvas. So Act 1 was the setup. I provided a discussion post in which I included this 30-second video. You could actually press play on it, and there's a guy talking on the phone, ordering, and basically this is what he ordered really quickly.
Fries, Coke, chicken nuggets, fries, chicken nuggets, Coke.
It's just 30 seconds, so students had a lot of questions like, why didn't he just combine the hamburgers and the fries and the Coke? The Act 2 was collect data and solve. So on Act 2, I provided another discussion post, which is the second one, and I gave them a menu with the items and the price. So here's the menu, and there are the prices there. Act 3, we finally revealed and reflected on our total cost. So basically we came up with an expression, which is the very top one here: 3h plus 4c plus 5f plus 2n. H, in a previous slide from here, I told them that h represents hamburgers, c represents Cokes, f represents fries, and n represents chicken nuggets. Then we just had to replace the variables with the prices, the total prices, and in which we got a total of $37.25. So $37.25. So some of the results, findings, and recommendations. So some of the key findings here was that I provided all the resources for students on Canvas that they needed to complete the 3-act math task. This included the video, which was embedded on a discussion post, but some of the students were not able to press play. So I had to screen share for a couple students, which also interrupted other students who were watching it on their own. Knowing this, I provided the students with the downloadable link to the video in which they could download into their own Chromebook. A second key finding was that for task 1, students were to write an expression to represent the order, but many of the students did not know how to answer that question. I had them refer back to their notes on the previous lessons, but due to distance learning, I'm not completely sure if they have been writing down their notes for the class. I always tell them that they have a math notebook just for our class where we keep all our notes, but I am not sure if they're actually, writing down their notes or just taking pictures. Although we all came back to the Zoom session from the breakout rooms and I provided them with the setting up the expression, some of them were still a little bit lost. Another key finding was that I dropped in on every single breakout room while students were discussing the tasks. Many of them were not talking, so I had to facilitate by asking students on the groups different questions in which they answered for me. They answered, by unmuting themselves, but I was not sure if they continued the conversation among themselves after I left to the next group. Many of the students were also distracted by talking about something other than the 3-act math task, so I had to redirect them to discuss the tasks. So a lot of them were distracted and talking about something completely different, like video games or something else. Here are some of the recommendations that I have. So a recommendation for teachers facilitating a 3-act math task would be to collaborate with ideas on how to do this activity on an online platform, and how it can be delivered, which method would be easier for students to access with less difficulty. So like I noticed at the beginning, some students were not able to hit play or click play on the video. This activity would have been a lot easier in person, but due to the current situation we are on, we have to be more creative with it. A second recommendation would be include an extension in case students finish early. So the first time that I went over this, we had almost 15 minutes. We had 15 minutes till the end of class, which we were done early. But something I recommend would be an extension for this particular, so an extension for this exact 3-act math test, so called Order Up. I would actually include different secret menu items. So let's say we could include a smoothie if I wanted a smoothie. If we could include, I don't know, a dessert. So secret menu items as well as menu combo specials, which we could include it, as well as coupons, so which would help us have which will give us a different total at the end. So that would be something I recommend, so like a little extension. And we can also talk about fast food places. Fast food places they have been to, and compare items to the prices for a better understanding of how much a particular item is. So basically, have the students talk about, all right, so let's say they go to McDonald's, one hamburger is probably $3, or a combo would be $5, so stuff like that. So have them look back into something, like in this case would be a restaurant or fast food place. For struggling students, make sure that there is a mini lesson or a lesson overview or review, on the topic covered in the tasks. So this will get the students to have a better understanding of what expressions are and how they can write a simplified expression by combining like terms and using grouping strategies. So this was a big one. A lot of students did not know exactly what we were doing on the fourth question in task 1. Um, it had them write a simplified expression of the items that the man ordered. A lot of them did not know how to answer that, so they put IDK or I don't know how to do it on the discussion. That's how they replied to number 4. And the last recommendation that I would give is for the teachers implementing a 3-act, any type of 3-act math task, is to have one that will introduce them to the next chapter of the lessons instead of doing one at the end of the chapter from the lessons we've already done. So the reason I did this order up lesson at the end of this unit was because I wanted them to have like a little overview of everything we've taken notes on. But honestly, I think I should have done it at the beginning of the unit, introducing them to the new topic. So this is my 3-act math test.